As I talked about in a live stream this past week, we decided that we are going to tackle the myths around autism. I have 10 that have myths that people wanted answered, that posted comments and questions on that actual stream. And then we have the top 6 according to Parent Magazine that are the largest myths that are out there around autism.
All right. Well, lay it on me. Let's do it.
Okay. Number 1. These are not listed in any order, so just the first one through the 10th one. Okay.
All right.
So the first one, change behavior. Children with autism can't learn the fundamentals of relationships, communication, and thinking.
Oh no, that's demonstrably false. Children with autism can learn the fundamentals of autism, can learn the fundamentals of relationship. I think a lot of people get confused on this because it can appear that they can't. Keeping in mind that autism is a spectrum. There are some children for whom their autism symptoms are extremely profound, and they're unable to function without assistance. And there are people with autism who don't require any assistance at all. In fact, you might not even know. Chances are there's somebody close to you who is on the autism spectrum and you are not aware of it. And this myth, I think, perpetuates because there are some children, especially those who are nonverbal, who aren't really able to express themselves in their relationships that well. But yeah, that's not true. People who are autistic definitely can learn relationships and have a variety of healthy relationships.
Next one, obviously, this is along with that, is love. Children with autism can't love or have loving relationships.
Oh no, that's absolutely not true. It can be hard for them to express their emotions, and conversely, actually, I would say it's a twofold issue. There are barriers to some people with autism expressing themselves, and people who have autistic loved ones oftentimes have a hard time understanding.
Excuse me.
When you have someone who's communicating at this level and you're understanding their communication at this level, sometimes there's a disconnect.
Okay. Next one, empathy. Children with autism can't empathize. They don't have the ability to have a theory of mind.
No, that is also not true. Obviously, you can't talk to somebody you can't have this kind of discussion with someone who's nonverbal. But there are ways to communicate with people who can't communicate in a typical fashion, a neurotypical fashion. And no, that's also not true. They definitely can.
All right. Next one is fixed. Autism is fixable with the right amount of vitamins. Now, this is a huge myth that centers around large doses of vitamin A and vitamin C.
I'm gonna preface what I'm about to say with, it's hardly ever bad to take a supplement. If you take an appropriate supplement, it's not going to hurt you usually. There's always that rare person who's got something where it's probably not going to hurt you to take an appropriate supplement. But an appropriate supplement, you can overdose on vitamins, and don't give your children high doses of anything. Definitely work with a pediatrician. And also, you can't cure autism. It is genetic. Now, that being said, there are a number of conditions that are comorbid with autism on a fairly frequent basis, and some of those probably can be modulated. I don't know, I'd have to be talking about a specific one to know for sure, but don't give your kids a shit ton of vitamins because it can be harmful. Don't do that. You want to give your kids a supplement? You want to give them a little gummy vitamin? Yeah, go for it. It's tasty. No, help them be healthy. Don't shove it. Don't.
No, they're talking about thousands of milligrams.
I know, and you'll overdose your children. You will cause harm. You're disappeared again. Get back. Yeah, you can cause harm. Don't do that. You can't cure autism. It's genetic.
All right. Next one, reading emotions. Children and adults with autism can't read or understand emotions.
Yes and no. There is a strong social communication component to autism, and some autistic adults. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna preface. A big portion of human communication is nonverbal. We have facial expressions, we have tonal, body language. If there's a big difference between, "Hey Will, how was your night?" and "Hey Will, how was your night?" My tone, my body language, I'm communicating two very different things there. And there is a social component to autism, and some people with autism do have difficulty reading those nonverbal cues. That doesn't mean they're incapable of it. It just means that they have a difficulty doing it. If you have a loved one in your life who is autistic, don't rely on innuendo to communicate with them. Just be blunt and say what you mean. They're going to appreciate it. You're going to appreciate it. You're going to have a much better communication. And that, again, that's not to say that all autistic people aren't a single individual. They're all different. And there's some autistic people who are much easier at picking up on nonverbal cues than we'll hear.
I'm terrible at it.
Yes. But everyone is different. But yes, they're
Smart. Children and adults with autism are just not as smart as others.
I think that's demonstrably false. It may appear that way for some people who are autistic because they have difficulty expressing themselves, and that can lead people to get an impression that they're not as smart as other people. But no, that's not the case.
Okay. Next one. Children with autism are only born to mothers over the age of 40.
Also not true. Children with autism are born to mothers of all demographics. There are certain things that tend to correlate with higher incidences of autism, being a certain age. But no, that's children. Any parent can have an autistic child.
All right. Next one. White women give birth to children with autism at 3 times the rate of others.
I don't believe that that's accurate. I will say that I haven't actually seen the hard stats, but I don't believe that is accurate. I am going to say, though, that we do know that there are differences in reporting globally. And a lot of that has to do with differences in identification, differences in reporting. You have some isolated communities that don't necessarily see healthcare providers. So it's hard to get global statistics, even when you're talking fully industrialized countries that speak to each other, because we're not all speaking the same language.
Certain religions do not, and they will not allow their children to be, within those religions. For religious reasons, they will not seek a diagnosis of autism for their child.
Yeah.
And you disappeared again. There's your arm in your back.
Ghost beverage. Oh, yeah. I was trying to make a joke with my tea and then everything disappeared. So it's hard to get firm statistics.
Well, it just going by the actual question itself, white women, at 3 times the rate, you're going to keep on disappearing every time you pick up your chair. I mean, your coffee, tea there. But just by going by the rate itself, 3 times the rate, not according to the autism awareness in the information I read out there. There is no religion, ethnicity where one demographic has a larger proportion of, or it gives birth to a larger proportion of people on the autism spectrum. So.
And I would also say, whenever you're looking at statistics, when it comes to health statistics for children and stuff like that, I would always read all of those values with some healthy skepticism, because you're always going to encounter reporting deficits in certain communities. And if you're looking to compare across communities, you're going to have certain communities that don't have the same access to healthcare and whatnot. Some communities traditionally have fear of healthcare workers and things like that. So
definite fear of the healthcare community.
yeah. So when you're looking to compare any medical statistic across demographics, always have some healthy skepticism.
All right, next one. Autism is related to Down syndrome.
No. Down syndrome is a trisomy, which means you've got 3 copies of the 23rd chromosome. So 21st chromosome. So what you've got, you get 1 set of chromosomes from your mom, you get 1 set of chromosomes from your dad, comes together, you've got 2 chromosomes. Well, sometimes when those gametes, the sperm and the egg, are dividing, they're supposed to make copies and then pull like this, and then you've got 1 here and you've got 1 here. Well, every once in a while there's an error. One of these will pull both of those copies, one of those, and that which will leave 1 with none and 1 with 2. So sometimes what happens then is if those gametes meet, and you've got one that has got a deletion or has got an addition, then you'll wind up with something. I'm going to use sex chromosome because it happens more frequently than other ones, but you'll wind up with like an X nothing, or an XXX or an XXY or something like that. And Down syndrome is another one of those trisomies. You've got multiple copies, you have 3 copies of chromosomes instead of 1. Whereas autism appears to be closer linked to certain microdeletions and additions, which is where small segments of genes copy more than they're supposed to, or they're missing. So one is a large scale change in a typical chromosome profile, and one is a small scale change in a typical chromosome profile. That's not to say they can't both happen at the same time, but they are different things.
Okay. And the last one, well, I'll wait till you come back because again, you pick up your key, you disappear. Last one that was suggested by viewers was children born with autism can't work, live on their own, or never seek higher education. Demonstrably false.
Yeah.
I'll answer the question. I know quite a few people who have adult children with autism. You're going to disappear. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it's your damn shirt. You have green in your shirt. It moves the color spectrum every time you move your hand.
See, I don't think that's the shirt because you are not wearing any green, but move your hand, you're going to disappear. He did it. Didn't he do it? He's going to see it when he does the editing. All right. Anyways.
I know enough with adults and people, other parents who have adult children with autism. They live on their own. They have seeked, out higher education. Yes, maybe they have barriers to, higher education, but depending on where they are on the spectrum, and even those, with more barriers to in education have gone on and sought out, higher levels of education beyond high school. And they live on their own. They are here within our community, and they live as normal of a life as they can. I mean, depending on what you consider normal, but they do everything that everybody else does. They just have barriers to communication. That is their main number one thing. They don't know how to fit in. They feel like they are a round peg, trying to fit into a square society.
Which I think everybody can empathize with.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a triangle and I don't fit into society. So, okay, that's the 10 from viewers. Now the next 6 are from Parent Magazine.
Ooh. What do you got for us, Parent Magazine?
Don't move your hands and don't drink your tea.
Oh no, I'm so thirsty.
6 myths about autism that way too many people believe. Myth number 1, autism is one disorder.
Yeah, so autism is like we discussed earlier, it's a spectrum. You've got people on one side of the spectrum who are perfectly able to function like any neurotypical individual, and you've got people on the very other end of the spectrum who will require assistance to function for their entire life. I do think that sometimes we leave those families out of the conversation, which might be why some people have that impression. Um, because the assistance those families need is profoundly different. But no, it's not one. It's every child is different.
Okay.
Every adult is different. I don't know why. Well, I know why we're focusing on children because of Taco, but
Next one. All children with autism have intellectual disabilities.
no, that's again demonstrably false. Um, again, every kid is different. Many do, but most don't.
Have what?
Uh,
They do what?
Some do have intellectual disabilities, but most children with autism do not.
I don't know of any. I don't know of any of out of all the children that I know and adults with autism. I don't know of any that have that are not able to learn, that have intellectual problems. They may learn in a different way. They may communicate in a different way, but I don't know of any that have intellectual issues.
I know several, parents whose children have intellectual disabilities. They have unique needs, but yeah, the majority of the children that I know don't.
Would you say your son has intellectual difficulties?
No,
Or
I don't think so. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell at 4, but
is he lesser of a person?
It-
Because he has,
well, even if he had an intellectual disability, wouldn't think he would be lesser of a person. So I don't actually know why you said that.
well, people believe in different things. They believe that, because they're not the same as their child, therefore our child is lesser than theirs.
Some people do think that, and I can't understand getting defensive about that. But even if he had an intellectual disability, he wouldn't be less of a person.
I totally agree with you. It's just that that's what some people actually really believe. They really believe that those who have Down syndrome or autism, or they have other barriers in their way, in life, that they're somehow lesser of.
Yeah, well, some people suck.
Huh?
Some people suck.
That's true. All right, next one. Kids with autism aren't interested in making friends.
No.
That is absolutely false.
Friendship might look different for children with autism. But again, keep in mind everything that we're saying here. Again, every kid is different. But at least, especially for our son, his friendships do tend to look a little bit different than our daughter's friendships did, but he still has friends. He's still interested in making friends. He will still force feed children on the playground an apple, which is his way of making friends.
He really does like to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he likes to make people eat.
When he goes out to play, you have to make sure he has no apples.
Yes.
There you go. You disappeared. See, told you, put your freaking tea down.
I'm so thirsty. And such good tea.
I'm gonna drink the whole cup right now.
I'm not that thirsty. But yeah, making friends is going to look different for a lot of autistic children than it is going to look for neurotypical children. But that doesn't mean they're not interested in making friends.
Yeah, our son wants to make friends. He just he gravitates towards other children with autism as well.
And that's because they feel him. They're like, you just want to sit here and play trains while I sit here and also play trains, but we're not actually interacting while playing trains. I got you.
But
and then they play trains.
But they sit there and they stare at each other, while they're doing it.
Yeah, and they're just having a great time while they're doing it.
They just don't touch my train.
And honestly, they have a better, smoother friendship than 2 kids who are fighting over stuff because they're trying to play together, which devolves into a fist fight.
Yeah.
No, autistic kids want to make friends.
All right, next one. Autism is caused entirely by genetics. I think we already answered that one, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, like all genetics, genetic conditions are typically expression is influenced by environment. Autism is strongly genetic, but environmental factors are going to play a part.
Strongly genetic?
Yeah, environment influences how genes are expressed.
Okay. Next one. Vaccines cause autism.
No.
I really, truly feel sorry for anybody out there that believes that vaccines cause autism.
And a point of contention on that is that the person who started that bullshit
It's right here. It's right here.
Falsified data, and he did so because he wanted to market his own vaccine.
Yep.
It was a grift.
He totally he made up over 3/4 of the data because he had a vaccine that he wanted to push to become wealthy and to be, somebody who, of importance in the medical community. He lied. He released it. They retracted it. He lost his license to ever practice medicine again. He's a laughing stock of the medical community. Everybody knows it that has ever paid any attention to in the medical community at all. He lied. But then that was picked up on the internet and like so many other things, picked up on the internet and people ran with it. And they have been shoving that down your throat and getting you to believe that the vaccines that children get when, for mumps, measles, rubella, that
The
one,
MMR.
the MMR, and other vaccines that children will get at what, 3 or 4?
I think the schedule actually might vary from country to country, but
Yeah.
I think they typically get their first one at like 18 months-ish.
But
yeah, the vaccine is going to cause autism.
It's almost worth not even addressing, but you need to understand that vaccines do not cause autism. If it did, we would be seeing an explosion of numbers of people who, more than we have now. Yes, there have been a lot of people who, and an uptick in actual diagnosis of autism. And that's just because we're finally getting people to go out there and get tested and have their children tested. And I think I read the report, something like 3 million people worldwide as adults were diagnosed with autism, as an adult. Now, these people were born, in the 50s, 60s, 70s. These are full-grown functioning adults, and they just never felt like they fit in, and they couldn't figure out their entire life, why don't I learn, like my friend over here? Why am I not like my friend over here? And it turns out that they're on the spectrum. Maybe they're in the lower end of the spectrum to, some of them are in the higher end of the spectrum. And I know it's not on here on the list here, but not all children with autism have some innate special gift. Like you can throw, box of toothpicks on the ground, they can tell you how many are there. They don't all have mathematical, wizard, they're not mathematical wizards, or they can't, hear a song once and then, repeat it flawlessly, in front of like 50,000 people. Not all of them have, these special, gifts. I guess you'd call it, right?
I don't know if I'd call it a gift because
Curse,
chances
maybe.
are, you're being exploited at some point in time.
Yeah, but I mean there was a guy, I think he was on American Idol, who I think he won American Idol, who had autism.
What's American Idol?
What?
What's American Idol?
Yeah, she's messing with you. But yeah.
All
Right, next one. Myth number 6 there. And you have to read that entire thing, by the way.
Chelation is a safe treatment for autism.
No.
don't
Please
feed your
don't do
kids
it.
weird shit. Don't feed your kids weird shit. There's all kinds of myths. This actually might be
Well, explain to the audience what gelation is.
okay. So there's this weird idea that mercury causes autism, and that if you get rid of the excess mercury in your kid's system, that they'll no longer be autistic, and it's feeding them vitamin A. Is we spoke earlier with the whatever, or earlier, the high doses of vitamin A to try and cure. You can't do that. It's not caused by mercury. It's not caused. Honestly, this is not the worst that I've seen. There was a myth going around that it was caused by parasites, and that
Yeah.
you could get rid of it by feeding your kids bleach.
Yep.
And what happened is that it would then strip the children's intestinal lining. They would shed intestinal lining. Parents would see these things that looked like worms and assume it was working and continue to feed their kids bleach.
This
Absolutely
is real, ladies and
freaking
gentlemen.
awful. Don't feed your kids weird shit.
Yeah. Hydrogen peroxide and bleach.
There's a person that you can go to, has gone to school for 10 plus years to help you treat your kid and their medical issues. Go to that person. Don't feed your kids weird shit.
Yeah. Hydrogen peroxide and bleach. It was a myth. It was actually made, the entire myth was started by someone who was trolling a group of parents who were their children weren't necessarily diagnosed yet with autism, but they were trying to figure out what was going on, if the issues that they were seeing with their children were environmental, if there was if there had been poison through the water system, if it was fluoride, what it was. They were trying to figure out what the actual correlation was to what they were seeing with their children. And this person trolled them, saying that he was a doctor. He wasn't a doctor. It turned out he was like a 22-year-old high school dropout who made up the entire thing about giving your children bleach and hydrogen peroxide. And they ran with it. And people actually started to believe this crap. And that's what it is. And you can do serious damage or kill your child. It was a kidney disease, and what else? Is there something else? Like a whole bunch of your internal organs can be shut down from high doses of vitamin A and C.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The human body is actually pretty good about regulating itself. Sometimes it might need a boost, a little antibiotic, a little daily vitamin, might need a little bit of help, especially if you've got a kid. Some autistic kids have really, really big food aversions, and that can be a serious issue. Definitely, multivitamin in those cases. But for the most part, you could eat Cheetos all day and you're probably going to be okay for quite a while. Like, you don't have to do a whole lot of tweaks to the human body. It can regulate itself pretty well. All right, let's move on from this. This makes me angry. What's the next one? Oh, wait, that was it. That was 6.
Well, yeah. So what are, can you think of any other myths that people have about that's surrounding, autism? Myths that people may have about, or believe, or, regarding our son.
No, I've noticed though that most of them tend to tend to go around. People tend to focus on those social issues, communication barriers. So how Taco repeats words and phrases, pretty frequently. And we know what he's trying to say, because lots of times he's repeating stuff out of books and things like that. So, like with the ice cream is yum, baby happy, right? He there's these 2 phrases out of 2 of his books, and he puts them together to tell us that he wants us to get him ice cream because it will make him happy, right?
Ice cream makes me happy.
Ice cream makes me happy too. It's sometimes it's hard for people outside of the family because they haven't grown up with that person, so they're not super well versed in their communication, the uniqueness of their communication. But I would argue that that's not necessarily something that's autistic. I mean, that's families in general. Every family is a little bit different. Taco didn't talk for a long time, and his speech therapist said good portion of that was because we just got him what he wanted. He didn't have to talk. If he opened up the fridge and pointed to a water bottle, we'd just get him a water bottle. If he wanted an apple juice, he pointed to an apple juice, we'd give him an apple juice. And because he didn't have to talk, he didn't. And, there's actually some merit to that, because when the speech therapist refused to get him something until he says it, he would just full out be like, apple juice, please. Like, oh, okay, so I don't get an apple juice, please, but she gets an apple juice, please. So,
Okay. So if you have a child that has autism, what is something that you think that the parents out there should know about their child?
what is that? Oh, I think I know. You're gonna fuck up. You will. I mean, every single parent of every kid, whether they're autistic, they're neurotypical, they've got something else, every parent screws up, and sometimes we make major screw ups. As long as your children know that you're trying and you're trying your best to be the best parent you can be, you're going to do okay. Accept that you're going to make some errors, because every parent makes errors, and just dedicate yourself to doing better. And trust me, your kids will love you. As long as you're putting in that effort to do the best you can, your kids will still love you. And maybe your autistic kid can't say it. Maybe they can't say it yet. Maybe they won't ever say it, but trust me, it's there.
Okay. Is there any resources out there that you think that parents should be aware of if they have a child who's autistic?
The number one thing I would think is finding an online parents group of parents that also have autistic kids. And you might have to shop around to find one that fits you and fits your personality. There's everything from the crunchy mom to the silky mom, and everything in between.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So the crunchy parents are, the very natural. They want to do as fewer interventions as possible. The silky parents are the all about modern interventions. And then there's the scrunchy parents, who are somewhere in between, which is actually kind of what I would describe Will and I as, even though this is the first time I think that he's heard those phrases.
Yeah, I've never heard of
Crunchy, silky, and scrunchy.
Am I crunchy?
You're a scrunchy.
I'm a scrunchy.
You're a scrunchy.
I have no idea what that is.
It's okay.
What's a scrunchy?
A scrunchy is a parent who's not crunchy and they're not silky. They're in between.
Oh. I don't want to be a scrunchy. I don't want to be referred to as scrunchy.
And this actually is a bit of a controversial take, but I don't see anything wrong with any of those parenting styles. What works for your family is what works for your family. So find a parenting group that fits your family values, so that you can find other parents to talk to. Because sometimes, even though, get your medical advice from your medical professionals. Absolutely. Do not go on, don't. Some people sound like they know what they're talking about. They don't. To talk to your doctor. Talk to other people, get their ideas, but then go to your medical professional and run them by them. Especially because our information constantly evolves. And so what may have actually been what happened and what worked well for a family 10 years ago is not necessarily going to be best practice now, because we have learned and we have grown in our medical knowledge, and your child's provider is going to be the best resource for that information.
And 10 years ago, feeding your child bleach was not a good idea. 10 years ago, feeding your child hydrogen peroxide was not a good idea. 10 years ago, feeding your child massive doses of vitamin A and C, wasn't a good idea.
And it's still not.
So that is never going to change.
Constant. That's a universal constant. Don't feed your kid weird shit.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and honestly, again, this is true for parents of any child, sometimes you just need to get it all off your chest, and you need to talk to parents who understand your unique situation. Yeah. For those parents whose children aren't verbal, it can be really devastating to not hear that your child loves you.
If you can, work with them and building a strong structure of sign language. Our son picked up sign language so quick. and it was a way for him to effectively be able to communicate with us before he could verbally, speak. He was signing, just basic please, all done, stuff like that. Just basic words like that.
Yeah.
Phrases, he picked it up like that. And he was really quickly, I think one of his first words were, hey, Dad, can I have the keys to the car? I mean, no, that wasn't really it. But can I have a cookie or something like that was one of his first phrases, that he said to me. I was like, oh, you want a cookie? Oh, here's an entire jar. Because when those words, if your child is speech delayed and they first start talking and you hear them and it's clear, you're gonna melt. You're gonna absolutely fall to your knees and melt. Because there was a time, and I'll share this with everybody out there. There was a time when Crystal here really was worried that about our son and his communication skills. Was he ever going to be able to say, I love you? Was he ever going to be able to, communicate effectively to her and with her?
One of my biggest fears with William was that
That's our son.
was that
Even though she called him Taco.
something might happen to him and that he wouldn't be able to tell us.
Yeah.
That was, and I can imagine for parents whose children never talk, that's probably a fear that doesn't ever go away.
No.
But that was one of our biggest fears, was that what if somebody hurts him? And like, you can tell when your kid is distressed and when they're hurt, but he can't tell us who. You leave your children, with educators and with therapists and stuff like that. There's so many people in your kid's life, and you vet them as best as you can. But what if something happens and he can't tell us? And I was so worried about that. I constantly. Even now, it's still, that kernel of worry is right there. There's nothing more stressful, I think, than being a parent, because at least for people like me that have a lot of anxiety, my brain loves to run through worst case scenarios daily.
And it's still the forethought, and it actually controls, and it goes into the decision-making process of anywhere I take my son. Because his communication skills are still not there. Even just simple as going to the park, anything like that. I mean, if he was to run off, there's no way for me to effectively, call him out or have him, be able to communicate with him. And if somebody else is there, and taking him to a friend's house, I have to watch where I take him in and around other children as well, because even if they're the same age and they may not understand, children are cruel to, especially to each other. And they will do the damnedest things, and they might be a perfect little angel. You think so, but you still have to watch it, because they know this child is not like me. This child, and they do think that he is less intelligent because he cannot speak, or he doesn't have the physical abilities to take part in sports or activities because he's autistic. These are absolutely
talking about
false.
that tiny man is going to do so good in track and field.
Track and field, I can't catch him now. I'm on a full-on run and I can't keep up with him. And there's nothing.
He loves to run.
Oh God, does he love to run? He loves to run.
He loves to be chased too.
Yeah.
Like, Mama's home.
He'll turn around. You'll be like in a dead sprint someplace. You'll be running after him. He'll turn around and laugh at you, and then just keep on going. That's our lives. Every day is a challenge, and again, and like she said earlier, you're going to make mistakes. Just don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if your child has autism or if they're normal or whatever. We're all going to make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. And we just have to learn from what we do. And when we do make mistakes, dust ourselves off, get back up and say, look, all right, I obviously I know this didn't work, or this is what I did that was wrong, and try to do something better the next time, not make that same mistake, but make the right decision. And so right now you already know, no bleach, no hydrogen peroxide, no large doses of vitamin A, no large doses of vitamin C.
Yeah.
If you just stay away from doing those, you're already on the right path. So
Absolutely.
anything else?
No.
Myths? No, nothing. Okay. Well, do you want to address the fact that there is very little to no resources for those with autism as adults, or those who grow out of the autist, support for younger children?
Well, it sounds like you already are well on the way to addressing that. So
I am. And you'll see the fundraiser in the upper right-hand corner here of this video. Well, actually, no, I can't do a fundraiser for autism on this channel until we get to 1,000 subscribers. And my
tell
other
your friends,
on my,
subscribe.
yeah, we need 1,000 subscribers to be able to do fundraising on this channel. And I think we have 319, so we need to more than triple our subscriber base so we can do fundraisers for other nonprofits. We're not asking you for your money, by the way. If you want to donate it to the charity for Next for Autism, Color the Spectrum. If you want to make a donation to that, go to my other channel, 411 Now, and on every video that I release from the beginning of May until the rest of the year, we'll have a fundraiser attached to it in the upper right hand corner where you can make a donation to Next for Autism. So, but again, until we get to 1,000 on this channel, we don't get a community tab. We don't get the ability to raise money for a nonprofit. I know those are YouTube rules, not mine. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Now, I don't know if we will have a upload next weekend because it is Memorial Day weekend. We may have one, we may not. It's up in the air right now. So, and if we don't see you next weekend, take care of yourself and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.
I think you're supposed to tell them to stay safe out there.
Stay safe out there.
Isn't that what you're supposed to say?
Well, I normally do.
Okay.
But I thought I changed it up today.
You can't change it up.
I can.
No,
I did.
absolutely not.
I absolutely did.
You stay safe out there.
Oh, see, she said it.